What is up, real estate rock stars? This is Christina Leavenworth out of Pensacola. I am so stoked for today's interview. We're talking to Jim Roche, who started real estate in 2015, but didn't even go full time till 2017. Now has more than 500 transactions a year, more than 50 agents. And the way he got started is going to blow you away. This is an incredible interview. Without further ado, I am so excited to talk to Jim Roche out of Philadelphia. And this guy has just killed it from being a solo agent to now being a team leader with more than 50 agents. And this is in less than 5 years, y'all. So it is crazy. Jim, how are you doing?
How you doing, Christina? Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. This podcast was one of my big stepping stones when I got into business. So, it's kind of full life circle moment for me. So I'm happy to be here and happy to give some value and bring back.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I have the same story. So I'm so grateful for this podcast as well. So a lot of people, when they first hear like, oh my gosh, 50 agents, 500 transactions a year, they're like, I can never do that. So let's start just at the beginning. What were you doing before real estate and why did you get into real estate?
Yeah, so I graduated college. I went to Penn State, graduated in 09. So, I've always been a team player. I was born and raised in Philadelphia, an athlete all my life. So I've always been a people person and been surrounded by people. When I graduated in 09, it was actually funny enough. It was back in the days where they would much rather hire experienced talent rather than new talent. That cycle has kind of changed a little bit now. So, my first job out of college was a full-time sales job, like phone book on the desk. I was working for Nationwide Insurance, just dialing personal lines insurance. So I did that for a while and really just started to kind of learn the sales cycle, from the beginning of having that book slapped on your desk, like, hey, figure it out. That's kind of always been a little bit of my mantra. So I think that was a good founding and stepping stone for me. And then ultimately, I transitioned through a few sales jobs. But what really, really impacted me is I always knew I wanted to be a business owner, be my own boss. I just didn't know the path and the career. And this is when HGTV and all the flipping shows were out there and everything, all that was a beautiful, sexy look everybody wanted to be a part of. And I remember distinctly laying there in bed one night, my wife's sleeping next to me. And I was like, man, you know what? Maybe I should just do this house flipping thing. So went online, got my real estate license, knocked that out quickly. And then I realized, oh, well, you need money to invest in real estate. So I utilized my license. So I was a part-time agent working in a sales job. I was basically working 18-hour days, working my full-time job and then moonlighting real estate at night and then on the weekends until I was able to basically save up enough money to basically say, hey, this is the decision that I'm going to make. So I made that decision in 2017 and left and joined Keller Williams in 2019. And then when I joined KW in 2019 is when my life and my business really changed from just understanding the models, the systems, and the world that you can build within a real estate business. It was just so enlightening to me, and it's been my passion every day since.
Okay, awesome. So in 2019 was when you go, all right, I want to build a team. I'm also a team leader, and there are a lot of challenges with that as well. I'm sure you've experienced. So tell me about how that went for you when you first started.
Yeah, and truthfully, Christina, the biggest thing, and probably a very similar story to you, but I know a lot of my other team leaders, is it was just simply in this setting of need. Too many leads, and what I ended up finding was I was not being able to provide the service that made me great and made me get referrals. So it started simply with really the traditional MREA model, hired an assistant. When the assistant came in, I even got busier and even more leads came in because I was able to kind of delegate and do a lot more myself. And I was more in that, business setting of just being out there and finding new business as I had the admin support. So that's when the agents started, kind of building out there. And then in 2020, funny enough, we launched the team and everybody knows what happens in March. So at that point, I was just myself. I had an assistant who's now my COO, who's been with me ever since that point. And we made a decision. We saw a lot of people, laying people off. We saw a lot of people in fear, and we saw a lot of people in panic. At that time, I was still very early into my business and my career, and I was still a risk taker. And I really also didn't know what the heck I was doing. So that was a good credit to myself. But I doubled down. So when COVID happened and everyone went the opposite way, I went out and actually hired. And obviously there was a great talent pool and a lot of people out there. And that was when we made one of our key hires, and I brought in who is now my director of marketing. And at that point, that's when I really started to see the system scale. Marketing was growing, the agents were growing. Everything started clicking, and at that point, we just started attracting agents. And truthfully, Christina, I didn't outwardly really recruit until probably 2024. That's just kind of how our team was. We've always really ran a real cultural based organization. We always talk about a culture of production here. So we want to surround ourselves with people who want to consistently push themselves and grow their life, grow their income, grow their business, and just ultimately everything for their family. So that's really the ecosystem here. We don't have high turnover. We provide the agents everything they need from my experience of growing. And my job now is just to work with them hand in hand and continue to give them all the tools and resources they need to continue to combat this market. And it's been great. Obviously we've been having a challenging market for the past few years, but every single day I wake up excited and, ready to run in here, tackle my agents' problems and, just help them continue to push on. So it's been a great journey, and learned a lot of lessons, like I said.
So you started with one assistant and then brought in a director of marketing. Were they an agent or did they come straight into just a salaried position?
Yeah, straight as into a salary position, and that was like one of those things, where you really bite the lip, and you're like, "Ugh," here we go. And going from one salary to two it's a game changer. Everything changes for you. But at that point too, myself as a leader, I think I grew a lot. And I started really, really leading with the sense of I take a lot of pride in my people, and in their business. And I want them always to consistently and continually grow. So I really take hey, I help put food on people's plates type of mentality very, very seriously. So that's kind of attached to my leadership. I love my people. My staff, all of them have been great and have continually grown, and I've taken bigger steps in their lives every year. So for me, that's all part of the big picture and what we're here for. So it's been incredible.
So you started with like just a couple agents. Kind of tell me about that growth because you go to conferences or you listen to podcasts and you hear 50 agents, and that's overwhelming. Maybe you're a team of just one or two people and you're struggling to stay above water. So talk about that growth.
Yeah. So in the beginning, I think where we really started to see the growth was as I was building out my leadership team. And what I really started to realize was as the team grew in agent count, you could only service and manage as many people and help as many people. And what I needed to do was start to attract leaders into our organization so that they could also make the same impact. So we did acquire a few teams early on in which I was able to bring agents in and them take their team leaders and put into leadership positions, which was great for us as I was able to bring a different insight and a different perspective in, to match with our vision, bring their people in to match with our team's vision, and just consistently grow forward there. So we acquired a few small teams in the beginning, just strictly in a partnership setting where they were just kind of joining into the Rarity organization, and that really helped the growth. But what we found during that time was when you're growing in large scales like that, the way you're recruiting and the people that you're recruiting may not match the actual culture that you actually have in the organization. So that was a really different sort of learning curve of our traditional hiring route. When you're bringing in larger groups of traditional hiring, it's not as standard, right? So you're bringing in different values and different things. So we figured that part out pretty quickly. So for us, what it really was is that point was like just trying to attract the right people in here who want what we're giving out there. And that's simply it. So a lot of the growth came early from, agents just raising their hand saying, hey, I see what you guys have and I want to be a part of it. And a lot of it came from, finding outside leadership and outside talent and trying to get them into our world and matching our vision. It's extremely hard right now for small teams to operate in this business. The lion's share of transactions have gone down. And there's a lot of agents out there who are looking up and we're running a team. And now those teams are losing money and the agents are back into production. So there was a big transition during that time where a lot of team leaders were looking up like, hey, is this the path? Is this what I want to do? Rarity's building something great. Let's join in here and, continue to push forward that way.
What does that split structure look like? Trying to bring
Yeah.
another team leader in that maybe is used to something different, or is your splits all the same no matter how you come in?
Yeah, so our company splits across the board are all the same across the board. We're a company of open book policy, meaning we want everybody to be on the same level playing field. We allow our agents to graduate up as they grow in their career as well. So depending on their production level or how much experience they have is going to depend on really what their split and what their ultimately their cap is, because we do cap our agents on their agent generated business here. We want them to be a partner. And what I really push for is the team to provide a specific amount of business that they can count on every single year, and their COI and themselves to come and bring a specific amount of business that they can count on. But together, that's a powerful force. So we were very clear about that. I'm all about agent tools and agent growth and giving the agents the ability to run a business, because as I said in the beginning, Christina, that's when it all clicked for me, when I really realized, like, hey, I'm just not a transactional sort of agent running paycheck to paycheck. I'm actually a business. I'm actually a CEO. That's when it all shifted for me. So even new agents, when they come in brand new, newly licensed, trying to train them from day one to think like a CEO rather than a realtor is a major key to success. And I think really what sets the foundation for a long-term career.
So, attracting team leaders, going back to that, because I think a lot of agents really haven't looked at acquiring teams. You probably have a lot of high D personalities. And, at the end of the day, I mean, you're the boss of your organization. Have you had any conflicts with that?
Well, so here's the thing. I think one thing, what you said is like, although I am the boss here, I never really lead with that, right? Like, and that's really always been my setting is I like making decisions united from within. So I have a leadership team. There's 5 of us here that act really sort of as a board of directors who are making decisions collectively as a group, as a representation on all of the agents. So for us, there was a lot of that, but that was part of the interview process. Like the main leader for me that we were bringing in was the most important thing, because that's where all the relationships were set, right? So they had the relationships with their agents. They knew how to best coach their agents. But if I could build that top relationship with the leader and help coach them with our vision and our models and how we see things, that'll start to pour down into into their team. So it's sort of a buy-in. There is that transitional period. But that being said, the best piece of advice I could give you is look around the other team leaders. Who's calling you all the time just to pick your brain? Right? Who's in your network groups that you sit with mastermind with that consistently has maybe some of the same problems that you already have fixed. It's things along those lines. The scale position for team leaders to take that real next step, that's a really hard jump. It's just the same thing as an agent to go from 12 transactions to 24 transactions. I mean, it's a whole nother level to that game. So that's what I would really suggest is keep your eyes open and just be aware of everybody else in the room and in the industry, and be proactive. Reach out. Hey, are you struggling? What can I help you with? And that's how I've always led. I always say I'm a leader of empathy, meaning I think and act with my heart first. And I think if you take care of the people, the profit will follow. And that's just kind of always how I've approached things. And listen, you get burned that way, but at the end of the day, it's a lot easier to put your head on the pillow and wake up and keep pushing through for me. So I'm a leader of empathy, and as long as I keep pushing that way, it yields the right results.
So, when you acquire these team leaders who have brought in 4 or 5 team members and they've worked on them, they've nurtured them, I'm kind of having a tough time figuring out how the split's the same. So, are
Yeah.
they now all equal? Like they're all
Yep.
team members now, and then that team leader no longer gets a cut off of their team members?
So the one thing to remember, Christina, is there's many different ways you can structure it. It's just like a business. It's just like a real estate deal. You can do a number of different ways. So one way we see is a lot of teams, they want to do a royalty sort of setting of like, hey, these agents that came in, I'll have a royalty on for X amount of time. So that team leader is still ultimately profiting and receiving income off of those agents. You could set that for a specific time frame or a length of time, et cetera. But what really is when they come in, they have to match and meet the culture and the standards and the operation here. So typically, when I would meet the team and meet the team leader, when we would go to sit with the agents, I would come in and present to the agents, and this is what we do, and this is what it is, and this is why it'll be this way. X, Y, and Z. And, I've never had an agent from that point in the transition say, hey, this isn't what I want. We've obviously had agents after the transition say, hey, you know what, I'm going to go this way or go that way. But that being said, we've kept a high success of it. So they come in, they basically drop their old team agreement and adopt the full true rarity model and buy into that. And one thing, Christina, that's great about it is it's a level playing field here. There's no second guessing who's got what and who's got this and who's got that. They all sign the same contract. Everybody's in the same position in the same place. And for us, that's truthfully, that's eliminated the comp conversation a lot that I know a lot of team leaders are dealing with. Because the fact is it's laid out there, it's plain and simple, and there's 50 other agents operating in it, selling 30, 40 million plus a year. Why can't you?
Yeah. So do you have a flow chart showing all this? Do you have almost like a squad system? Again, it sounds like a lot.
It's a lot. And, truth be told, that's why my leadership team now, Christina, is so important to me. So I have obviously my COO, who works everything from top to bottom, but she's really working very, very closely with our agents, but also our operations to make sure that's streamlined and that structure goes well. I have a president of sales, who's also a broker of record. So he is in charge of agent training calendars, direct agent conversations, contracts, different things along those lines. I also have a director of sales, an ISA department, a full built marketing team, et cetera. We have a CRM integrator in house. So there is a lot, and we do have a big org chart. There's a lot going there. But what Rarity really does, and Rarity OS really does, is we really try to focus it on 7 core services and focus the agents into these 7 levers and allow them to lean into their strengths. Not every agent runs the business the same way. They're not going to run it the way Jim Roche does. They're not going to run it the way Christina does. It's their own way because at the end of the day, it's their business, right? So what I've seen is by laying out the options to these people, giving them everything they need up front, it allows them to lean into what their real strengths are and maximize and utilize that to the best of their abilities. So it's a lot. We offer a lot. There's sometimes where we try to look back and say, hey, how do we make this simple? But that's how we try to face it forward for our agents. Our slogan at Rarity and Rarity OS is leverage made simple. That's really it. So it's empowering entrepreneurial real estate agents, and having leverage made simple. That's really the goal.
And you're mostly in the Northeast, or are you beyond that?
Yeah, mostly in the Northeast right now. So Philadelphia, obviously Pennsylvania. We're over in New Jersey. We have agents in North Carolina, South Carolina, and then South Florida is starting to be a little growth point for us as well. So as our systems kind of grow and we're beta testing our OS product out with a lot of these agents, we're just adding more and finding more ways to impact, ways to build value, and ultimately ways to create community. I think that's, for me, the biggest thing is the hardest job I have right now is how do I take the culture I have in-house and make that basically virtual and out of house. So, that's, once again, it's one of the best parts of this job is you're always trying to figure out the next problem, always trying to put together solutions. And, it's an exciting challenge, but we're seeing a lot of the great success, and our agents are being successful, and, it's been a win-win right now.
I know we all know this market's been challenging for sure. What are you guys doing to get deals? Anything outside the box?
Yeah, you know what? I was listening to the podcast actually right before that, but I'll be truthfully honest right now. Your center of influence is everything and anything. Your database is the key to everything and the key to all your success and your results. So we are really doubling down on our agents and their CRMs and their involvement. AI, obviously, over the past year, 18 months, whatever, has taken really good leaps as far as agent functionability and how quickly we can do things. So I think understanding those tools that are out there, but how to best use them. So here we use Follow Up Boss as our CRM here, and they're consistently adding things. So for us, what we need to do as leaders is educate our agents, show them that consistently, train them on those tools because they don't know what they don't know. And there's a ton of information out there and they could be following the wrong path, but it's up to us as leaders to really put them on that road and push them forward. So for us, the CRM right now is a really, really big backbone for us. That's where we're seeing the agents pull the majority of the deals, and ultimately winning a lot of business. And another thing too, Christina, is our agents are winning right now in open houses. So I think it's just important to reiterate that agents have to show up. You have to put yourself in the game to win opportunities. And just because your open houses were slow last week doesn't mean they're going to be slow this week. But you won't know unless you show up. So it's the consistency of the actions that I think above all are important. So if you can have that CRM and work that COI, but consistently work your CRM within that and your people within that and add those tactics in there, you're going to have a pipeline and it's going to be filled forever. That's just how the business goes.
I know a lot of people that listen to the Real Estate Rockstars podcast are Follow Up Boss users. So, what is this new secret integration you're talking about? I don't think I know about it.
Well, they're just everything that Follow Up Ross really does, from the setting of linking up, just syncing their APIs. We use a number of different tools here. So we're Keller Williams. A lot of our systems are, built directly for us, built in-house for us. But Follow Up Boss has just done a great job just consistently innovating their product. So their AI they have in there now, the recording of their calls, how they can obviously, break those things down. It just allows our agents to operate and move so much more quickly within their CRMs. Smart plans have been a really, really big thing for us. So just getting people on the drip campaigns, just not treating a cold lead. Hey, they didn't answer after my 12th follow-up. Doesn't mean they're gone forever. Put them on the smart plans, consistently engage with them, stay in front of them, because at the end of the day, it's just all about that consistency and being in the game and showing up and delivering that value.
100%. So, are you 100% out of production now?
No, so I like to do, my rule of thumb mentally is like I like to really try to aim for one deal a month, just because it keeps me active in the market. Now, that being said, I don't take on a lot more because going back to when I started the team is my service and, the value that I bring to my agents and to not my agents, excuse me, my clients is ultimately everything and anything for me. So I still love it's cool being like, hey, you're the one person I'm working this month. Like, let's rock and roll. And it's great. So it keeps me in the market. It allows me to ultimately still consistently see what the agents are doing and what they're dealing with and, having those boots on the ground. So I always try to at least have one deal under contract at all times. So it changes. Sometimes it goes 2, 3, sometimes it's 0, but it's just the consistency of every month. Let's do deals.
Yeah, it keeps things relevant. When they're calling you with their issues, you're like, okay, I recently experienced that too, 100%. So, how many salaried positions do you have now with your build out?
Yes. Yeah. So I have in total right now, I have 5 agents in leadership. I'm sorry, I have 5 leaders on my leadership team. Now those are direct paid employees or also accounted to like a no cost of sale or revenue percentage there. I have 6 full-time employees in-house in office. Then we have 5 virtual assistants backing those employees up and doing a lot of the other work as well. So total headcount as far as, human counts been around 11, within the organization, servicing basically close to 550 plus transactions a year.
It sounds like you're pretty good at hiring. I feel like a lot of us team leaders have just been burnt and we're scared to do that because we ask the right questions, they give us the right answers, and then you're having to, like, again, leading from empathy, break somebody's heart, telling them it's not working out. Do you have any secrets on how to get the right people the first time?
Yeah, I think it's a process. We see a lot of success, truthfully, coming from referrals rather than cold applications. And I just don't know if that's here locally or, if that's a trend around the country. But I don't know if I've ever really truly hired somebody just out of a Indeed.com. Now, they may have came there and then ultimately built through a relationship in a certain setting. But majority of people that have come here have been people that have similar views, have similar ways and perspectives. Like, we're a very mindset driven group here, very growth oriented. So for me, it's people that want to come in and be a driver, that want to do more and see more. But ultimately, like, when they get into business and they get into culture, you start to understand and see how they're interacting with people and, just how they're working. And for me, I just been fortunate in the setting just to have great people around me, such as my COO, and then also my other employees that just, they pour into it. Because when a new person comes in there, it's a new family member to them. It's a new person in the group chat, and new person to go out to, lunch and dinners and all that stuff with. So, we do operate and have that family feel. So I think, for me, it's just finding the right person and finding their drive, seeing their vision and their, what really drives them at the end of the day, and see if it matches with you and your company culture, and you build upon that.
But whenever I run, that was one of the podcasts I would listen to on my rotation. And so that's how I really got started with Real Estate Rockstars and was interested in the mastermind. Dang, I've got so much value out of the podcast that I obviously wanted to be there. And I've gone every year since.
Hey, you're going to come out here and we're going to teach you about some lead gen. And we do plenty of that stuff. But what really happens is people leave with their lives changed. Listeners, if you are thinking about coming out, find me on Instagram. I've got links and stuff on there. You can DM me for info. It's at Aaron Amuchastegui. Or you can go to our website, realestaterockstarsmastermind.com. We've got 2 options for ticket. This week is $900 for a single ticket, or you can do a payment plan where you do like 4 payments of $250 so you can lock in a ticket. So guys, if you're out there, you think, man, I wish I would have gone to that. That's something that I need next year. I know it's hard to buy something like 10 months ahead of time. Be like, why would I do that? Why can I think so far ahead? But hopefully you can be a little inspired. Do it this way.
What really drives them at the end of the day, and see if it matches with you and your company culture, and you build upon that. It's the hardest part, though. It's hire slow, fire quick, right? And that's really been one of the biggest challenges of growth. But for me, it's just been consistently staying focused and remembering who the main core is here and protecting that by bringing anybody else in, but by bringing the right people in.
Your director of sales, was he or she a former realtor or a totally different job? Okay.
Yeah, so he's still active in production. He's my director of sales. He actually kind of runs a lot of our development business as well. So I was a pretty big development sales agent. So I kind of built my business and my career off of new construction, new development. And so when I started to take the next step up, we're one of the top new construction sales agents here, or sales teams here, obviously in the state of Pennsylvania. So we do a lot of inventory. It's about 35% of what we sell every single year. So when I was taking a step out of that, I was able to kind of train an agent underneath me directly to kind of take over those accounts, but to also kind of step up into this director of sales role as well. So that's been a really, really impactful person. And Marco's been a great leader for us. He runs the Land and Leverage program, which teaches agents, how to go from, basically not knowing anything to selling new construction at a high level in less than a month. It's a pretty incredible sort of process that we run here, but it's the director of sales aspect is just a major winner. It just gives those agents just another person that they feel they have another layer that's right there with them, arm in arm, working through deals every single day.
So how did you get into that? Were you the listing agent for this new construction or the buyer's agent? Okay.
Yeah, so we call it Land the Leverage. It was just published recently in the MREA playbook. But what it really is, in essence, is when I got into business, Christina, I didn't want to start calling my families and friends. I just wasn't comfortable doing that, and I didn't want to screw their deals up. So I figured let's chase the general public first and practice there, right? So the way I really truthfully started my business was everyone was calling expireds. Everybody was calling all these different things. And I kind of wanted to do things a little bit different and a little unique. So how I kind of viewed it is I knew every time, obviously being in a big city here, you would drive by a property. If you see a dilapidated property, no one's living there. It's probably a parcel that needs to either be sold or maybe be rented or renovated, whatever it is. So I started by doing what I call driving for dollars. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. every morning and I would just scrounge neighborhoods and write down addresses. And then what I would do is I would come back home in the morning, I would research them, I would skip trace them, try to find their addresses, phone numbers, whatever we really could here to try to get in contact with them. My goal was to get in contact with the seller to basically then take the product and match it directly with the developer who I know works in that area and delivers those products. So what I had to do, and the first step of it was really go out and amass off-market resources. So I just drove around, built relationships with property owners, skip trace, prospect, cold called, sent letters, door knocked, you named it. I was on the streets just finding deals. And what I was essentially doing at that point was taking the deals and then bringing them to the developer. And how we work and how typically we see it in the areas, if you bring the deal, you'll get the back end listing. So for me, every single house or every single piece of land I saw wasn't just one transaction. It was ultimately 4. It could be the purchase, the buy and the sell on the front end, and then it could be buy and the sell on the back end on the flip. And that allowed me to grow a business, but also a projectable pipeline too. I think, Christina, is important to remember, because when I was selling a piece of land now, okay, in 12 months, this piece of land is going to be 12 townhomes that are $800,000, and I'm going to need a buyer's agent, and I'm going to need the marketing for it, and I'm going to need this. So I was able to kind of future pace the needs of the organization and the needs of myself with the inventory that I had upcoming through new construction and new development. So that was my game plan, and that was it. And so at the end of the day, what I figured out was if I could lead with value, meaning if I could lead with a deal, I had everything I needed to. And to quote Gary Keller, Gary taught me this and said this to me at a very, very young age in my business when I was working this and trying to grow this. But if you control the land, you control the deal. At the end of the day, developers need land. That's the product that they need. So if you control that, meaning you have the access to that, they need you more than you need them. And that's a powerful position to be in as a realtor. We typically are on the other side competing against everybody else. But imagine a world where you are the person that's in control and you have developers competing against each other to work with you. So that was the change and the flip that we kind of worked on and I've built on. And as I said, that was the foundation and the backbone of the business, which kind of ultimately led me and grew me to where I am today.
Yeah, I think that's a big shift with everyone. Once you realize your value, your business changes. When you really realize that buyer needs you more than you need them, like you're darn good at your job. So at the beginning, were some of these just single family
Oh, yeah.
lots?
That was
That's
it.
cool.
It was,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
My first sale was I was door knocking a duplex. There was a for rent sign. It was just a standard one that you find at those ones in Home Depot, the black and yellow had the excuse me, had the landlord's number on there. I was assuming the landlord, it wasn't represented by a realtor, assuming that landlord number is the owner. I called the owner. I said, "Hey, I saw you have a unit vacant. I work in the area. Are you looking to sell or are you just looking to fill the unit?" And it was just coincidence. It was timing. They owned two properties. Husband was the property manager, getting old. They couldn't fill the vacancy. And she was just like, "Hey, could you meet me there and take a look and give your opinion?" And that was that. And that was my first listing that I took, 1938 Morris Street. I think I sold it for I don't even know, 290, I want to say, but it's probably worth six something now. Looking back on it, I should have bought it. But it's that was the first deal, and that's when it started. And then once that happened, it clicked, and it was just really building the rapport. But once I had off market value and I had value to do, people started calling me, and my phone was ringing. So that's when it was like, okay, I need to hire a new agent. I need to hire this new agent. I need to get somebody with experience here, et cetera. And that's kind of how it went. Another hack I would do is I would show up on development sites every single day, just like walk on. I saw if there's a permit in the window, that means something's happening there. So I just knock up. Some majority of times the owner or the developer wasn't there, but the contractor was, and they know that home needs to get sold, because if that home doesn't get sold, they don't get paid, right? So they're willing to give me, if I'm out there, hey, scouring the neighborhood looking for my buyers, hey, this is a great way. They would always put me in contact. The thing I always heard, Christina, was, "Oh yeah, I'll give you a listing if you find me a buyer." Right? Of course. So what did I start doing? I knew that inventory was upcoming. I would start hosting open houses around the upcoming products. And what I would do is the buyers that would come in, I would say, "Hey, my open house is done here at 1:00, but I have two houses that are off market. Nobody knows about. They're not done. They're coming in about 2 to 3 months. I could take you over there if you want to meet me right after the open house. Just give me 15 minutes. So then I was leading once again with value to the buyers, right? So I had values to sellers, I had value to buyers, and it kind of created this ultimate ecosystem that just kind of allowed me to keep growing. So once I knew I had something there, that's when I started putting in and really just kind of putting a value around the business to make sure that we could still deliver the service and the value the way that I was doing it when I was as active and boots on the ground. So that was quite the journey, but we're still learning every single day and still building off of it every day.
That is great stuff. I know how some agents are. They all think, "Oh, he did this in 2015. He did it when prices were cheap, when interest rates are down." Is this still working today?
Every single day. Every single day. Christina, one thing I'll tell you right now, excuse me, and I'll challenge everybody, go on your MLS and don't look at your MLS active inventory as a real estate agent. Look at it as a real estate investor. Don't look at how many bedrooms there are. Look at how big the lot size is. Don't look at how many bathrooms. Look at what the zoning is. And start to understand and look at projects and properties the other way. I can't tell you how many deals I find on the MLS just because an agent didn't know what they had on their hands. They just thought they had a structure, but they didn't understand they had 2,000 square feet of residential mixed use zoning that you could put 20 units on. Right. So we scrounge deals all the time. We find more deals on the MLS, truthfully, Christine, than we do cold prospecting, quickly. And that's just because we know how to look at it and how we, and how to pursue it. That being said, off market is still a great opportunity. I'll tell you guys, the only way to find them is to get out there. You're not going to find an off-market property sitting inside your office. You got to find off-market properties by being out on the streets, right? And by getting boots on the ground and having conversations and doing those things. So that's where I found the highest level of success, where I could sit here and call every expired number just like every other agent in the country. Or I could go out and get my boots on the ground into the community where people that I know, that like me, that trust me, and go provide value that way. And that for me was just the easiest, the better ticket. There's some things in this business that you want to mimic all the agents, but your lead generation and your lead tactics are things that you want to individualize and singularize to yourself, because that's what's going to make you unique and make you special. And once you figure out those real spinning plates or those levers, you lean into those, you have a career and a business for a long time to come.
That's what I love about real estate. There's so many different ways to build your business and do different things. And I think yours is something I haven't heard in a while. And again, I think a lot of people would think, oh, that won't work. It's all about hustle. And like you said, getting out there day in, day out. How long did it take for you to get your first deal when you started doing that?
About 3 months. I don't want to make it seem like, it was that quick. Now, once again, remember, I was brand new. I didn't even know zoning codes. So it being the setting is in what we teach in Land to Leverage is to take the knowledge you have as an agent now and just kind of change your thought process. Put your developer cap on. And truthfully, for me, what's one of the most incredible things is as agents, I think it's always important for us to always think first as an investor, and that's just kind of how this is. So if you want to amass and grow wealth through real estate, this is one of the best ways to do it. So I would show up a lot of times. I was ultimately sometimes the first buyer. I was bringing a cash offer ultimately. Hey, this is what I would pay for it. I know it's probably not what you would want, and I don't think you should take it. We should take it to the market. But, I was able to amass a nice portfolio at a very young age when I didn't know what I was. That was able to spiral and build to ultimately, what this business is now. But it's just changing the thought process and thinking about it in an entirely different way. Don't just simply singularly think like an agent. Think like an investor. Think like a first-time home buyer. Think like a seller. Put yourself in the other person's shoes and go find the opportunities of where they would be standing.
At our first Real Estate Rockstars Mastermind, we had someone speak on stage, and he had said and really was like pushing. He's like, if you are only getting a commission check, you are essentially a waitress working for tips. And ever since he said that, we all were like, push. And, that's why you need to invest. And I've done that as well, where I've sat there in front of the seller and said, hey, I'll buy it. You'll get more on the market, but here's what I'd be willing to pay. And you're truly honest about it. And sometimes they go, I don't want to deal with that. I'd rather just have you buy it. And all of us have had those experiences.
I just saw a stat about 67% of home sellers right now in the marketplace would take 20% less of their sales price to avoid all stress. That was a stat that just came out, right? So, and that's just one thing. Like agents don't think that. Agents like no one's going to want to give it 20%. It's so different, 20% discount. It's so different. You have to put yourself on the other side of the table and see it from both sides of the perspective. It's not always price. Terms are just as important as price. And once again, it's just being cognizant of that and just, going in with that open mind every single time. But at the end of the day, leading as a truthful, trustworthy, empathy driving agent, making the best decision for your clients. That's the thing I've always done and will always consistently do is leading and putting the client first.
Well, Jim, this has been awesome. Time has flown by. Is there how can people find you? And is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, it's ultimately, I think we covered a lot of it. We do have a lot. I could go on and talk for days, but I'll tell you the one thing I love doing is empowering entrepreneurial real estate agents. So if there's anybody out there that's stuck or they feel like they're in a rut, they don't know which direction to go, please feel free to reach out. Jim jimroche.re on Instagram is usually the best way to get it. I'm sure you guys will link all that. My email is jim@rarityre.com. But, I just want to bring back and give back to our community. This is such an amazing and incredible business. And I think if you look at it the right way and you build it the right way, you can change and make such major impact on people's lives. And that's what just wakes me up and keeps this permanent smile on my face all the time. So anything anybody ever needs, please, Rarity, Jim Roche, we're here to reach out. You can visit us at rarityre.com or joinrarityos.com. We look forward to hearing from you.
Well, thank you, Jim, and everyone. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to connect with me, you can go to Instagram. This is Christina Leavenworth. Thank you again, and we'll hang out next time.